Okay, welcome to another edition of 5 Minutes with Joe. This is the knife edition. We're going to talk a little bit today about knives, different kinds of knives, what to use them for, and where they come from. And number one on the list is probably this classic Hubert 8-inch chef knife that you'll find in most of our kitchens. It has a nice soft grip and very easy to use. And you could use this probably for 80% of the things you need to use a knife for. This is what you'll be using. This fellow here that I have in my collection is an old hickory, very soft, high carbon steel, and as you can see it's all pitted, but very, very easy to sharpen. And when you sharpen this soft steel, it gets very, very sharp. But the downside is, after about 3 tomatoes, it loses that because it's so soft. So not used that much anymore. Some people still do. This is a Chinese chef knife, and the Chinese knife is excellent for doing vegetables. This particular fellow I picked up when I was in the Culinary Academy in California many moons ago for the grand price of $13. And this particular blade is made by Dexter. You can tell by the Chinese writing here, Dexter in Southbridge, Massachusetts, but a very handy knife. This one here, this Wusthof with a Granton edge, very handy knife, great for doing tomatoes. The Granton edge here that you see breaks the vacuum of the air so the tomato does not stick to the knife. So very handy for that, and potatoes as well. Here we have a classic boning knife. It also has a Granton edge. You'll see these boning knives that butchers have been using for years and years and years, and they will actually end up looking like a pencil. They sharpen them so much. This particular one has a very nice soft handle, very easy to use, and actually this one comes from Portugal. Again, Wusthof, your basic paring knife. The Wusthof Classic, it's called, as opposed to the non-classic Wustofs. Comes from Solingen, Germany. A lot of these knives come from Solingen. A very handy knife to have. And I probably, right from this point here, I would say with this guy here and your boning knife, and if you had that and your chef's knife, you have probably about knives that will cover about 90% of what you need to do with them. This knife here, I really enjoy. This is a knife that Greg Mueller made for me, a chef for Sodexo, and we found that this knife is very, very good for slicing gravlax. It has a very thin blade, but very, very stiff, so it's really nice for shaving tender fish. Down here, we have a couple of knives that were from my wife's knives from the California Culinary Academy, and they have on them a bolster that you can see. And if you look very closely down at the bolster, you can see when they've been sharpened so many times, they actually end up with a little bit of a dip in there, and that happens because that bolster makes them skip when you're sharpening them, on the sharpening stone. So that's why I prefer a knife like Greg's here that you have that has no bolster but is easy to sharpen from edge to edge. So something to think about and something to look for. This particular knife was made for the California Culinary Academy, and it was made in Solingen, Germany, which was Western Germany, which is what it was known as before the wall came down. Now, of course, it's just Solingen, Germany. But Solingen seems to keep coming up in all these knives. Here's Wusthof from Solingen, the Wusthof Classic. And, of course, the paring knife also coming from Solingen. So a lot of these knives come from Solingen in Germany. And wouldn't it be nice if we could go take a look in Solingen and see how these knives are made? What if, huh? Okay, so we've come here to Solingen in Germany, where all the knives are made by so many different companies. And here's one of them behind us. Henkels makes tons of knives. Also, Wusthof is in town. And we're actually going to tour the Good factory to show you how they make knives. Okay, so we've come to Solingen in Germany, and we are at Good, where they make all sorts of different knives. And we're going to tour the factory. And you can see here a lot of the knives that they make, and very, very special stuff. So why don't you come with us, and we're going to tour through and see what they do.
One at a time.
How often everything
Depends what you do. Here it dries only a little bit,
so it lasts a long
that's
time.
the day.
And there's the vacuums right outside.
Wow. We'll always can imagine every knife you have at least 40 times somebody has to take it in his hands.
Yeah. Is that cool?
Have to be your use a logo with the three palm trees. Because the reason for the logo is people at that time couldn't read, or not many people could read. So people were buying the picture.
They remember the logo.
That is the reason for the logos.
We can read, but we function more about it.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of 5 Minutes with Joe. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.